Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Welcome back to the Divine Reality course. We have been covering or going over the Quranic argument for God's existence. Now we're going to move on. We've made the argument. We've highlighted and established that the universe was created or brought into existence by an uncaused cause, an uncreated creator. Although I'm saying creator, but we're going to further establish this now and link this argument more closely to who we know Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is. Now, let's do some conceptual analysis here. Once we've determined that the universe was created or brought into existence by an uncaused cause, what else can we conclude about this cause if we just reflect upon this? Well, for the first thing, we've come to the conclusion that it must be eternal. It doesn't have a beginning, because we saw, if you say that this cause was caused or created, you run into the problem of an infinite regress, and we saw the problem there and we highlighted why that's an absurdity. Therefore, this cause is eternal. That's one thing we come to straight away. Secondly, I would argue we can say that this cause is all powerful. And why do I say this cause is all powerful? Well, all we have to do is reflect upon our universe. This universe that was brought into existence has immense amount of potential power. I mean, what happens when you split an atom in a specific way? There's a release of immense energy. That's just one atom. How many atoms are within this known universe? I mean, I'm sure there's some figures, some physicists or scientists have given us, but I can assure you, although I don't know the exact figure, there are an immense amount of atoms within this known universe. There's an immense amount of things within this known universe. So when it comes to the level of atoms and molecules, there's probably so much, right? There's so many potential atoms within this universe, and the potential energy that's contained within this universe, we can't even begin to imagine how much energy is contained within this physical material universe. Now, the cause that brought this into existence and created this energy and power within this physical universe, what could we say about his power? This cause must be all powerful, beyond our conception, what we can conceive of or understand. So it's a rational conclusion to assume that this cause is all powerful. We can also say that this cause has a will. Now, why do I say it has a will? Well, think about this. This eternal cause, without beginning or end, brought into existence a finite universe at a particular point. I'm not going to say point in time, because we can argue that time, space and time, began to exist. But that's another discussion. The point is, let's just for now say that this eternal cause brought into effect this finite universe at a particular point. And if it brought this universe into existence at a particular point, and when the universe didn't always exist, that means it chose to bring the universe into existence at a particular point. And a choice points towards a will. We don't think about the concept of choice, to choose. What chooses? You can't have choice without a will. So the choice points towards a will. And also, again, if we reflect upon the argument from contingency and dependency, the other thing we concluded about the universe is that it has limited physical qualities, meaning it has a certain volume, a certain size, a certain shape, a certain structure. We also concluded that the universe, the fundamental building blocks of the universe could have been arranged in any other way. So that the universe was arranged in a specific way. So these two things are the fact that the universe has limited physical qualities, and it could have been arranged in other ways, but it's arranged in a specific way, highlights that choice again. That this cause chose to arrange the universe in this specific way. It chose to give this universe its limited physical qualities that we perceive. And also, this further not only highlights that this cause has a will, but I would argue that this cause has knowledge and wisdom. Because to arrange the universe in a particular way and to give the universe its specific limited physical qualities highlights knowledge. Because it could have been arranged in any other way. But if it's arranged in a specific way, that highlights knowledge and wisdom. That there is a wise arrangement. There is a specific arrangement as opposed to any other arrangement. We can also argue that this cause is transcendent, because this cause is eternal. This universe is finite. So the eternal cannot be the same as the finite. The dependent could not be the same as what's necessary. So there's a distinction here. There's a transcendence, that this cause is transcendent, distinct, as our scholars say, distinct and disjoint from this universe. This cause is distinct and disjoint from this dependent, limited, finite universe. We can also argue that this cause is one. Now there's many ways of doing this. I personally like to highlight or refer to another ayah of the Quran where Allah says that if there were other gods, deities, beings besides Allah within the heavens and the earth, then both the heavens and the earth would have been completely ruined and destroyed. And in a nutshell, one of the logical points here is that when we know who Allah is, Allah's names and attributes, He's all powerful, as we've concluded even just through rational analysis, that He is able to do all things. He is not dependent on anything or anyone, not reliant upon anything or anyone, again, as we've concluded through conceptual analysis. Therefore, this cause is not going to depend on or rely upon or have to agree with another cause. I mean, if there were other causes or beings, well, then there will be chaos. They wouldn't agree with it, because as soon as you say this cause, this eternal, all-powerful cause is agreeing with another being or cause, well, then he's no longer all-powerful or independent. So that would almost assert dependency upon this cause and bring this cause into the realm of dependent things. And that doesn't make any sense. So that's one way you can argue that this cause is one. It makes sense that this cause is one and unique. Another point to reflect upon is, if we're talking about the origins of the universe, that this cause brought this universe into existence. Now if you say that, well, no, there was not one cause, there was two causes or three causes or four causes that brought this universe into existence. Well, then what differentiates them? Because if nothing differentiates them, if they all brought this universe, all were the causes of the universe, and they all brought this universe into existence, and they all determined the universe to be the way it is and function the way it does, and to arrange its fundamental building blocks exactly the same way, well, then you're not referring to more than one cause, you're just referring to one cause. So this is the sort of argument from conceptual differentiation. Because if you can't differentiate, if you assert that there's more than one cause and you can't differentiate between them, well, then there's only one. It's like, I'll give you a simple example. It's like, what do you see in front of you now? Well, you'll say you see a phone. But what about if I said to you, no, there's not a phone here, there's four phones here. And they're just occupying the same space, and they're moving in the same way, and they're doing, everything the same. But there's four, not one. You would think I'm crazy. Why? Because there's nothing that conceptually differentiates the four that I'm claiming. They're not taking up different space, they're not a different size, they're not moving in different ways. There's nothing that differentiates them. Therefore, there's really only one. And this is exactly the point here. That the cause of the universe, it's rational to assume that the cause is one as opposed to more than one, being more than one. So in a sort of very simple way, we have determined that this cause that we have concluded brought this universe into existence is eternal, is all powerful, has a will, has knowledge, has wisdom, is transcendent, and is one. Now all of these things, brothers and sisters, link back to what we believe about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Our conception of the Almighty, the Creator. Allah is uniquely one. Allah is eternal, has no beginning, has no end. Allah is all powerful, as Allah tells us in the Quran. Allah is all knowing, as Allah tells us. Allah is all wise, Al-Hakim, as Allah tells us. He is transcendent, as He informs us in the Quran. He is uniquely one, as He, again, informs us in the Quran. So here what we're doing is we're bridging the gap between our philosophical, you can say philosophical argument, but I would refer to it as an argument that's derived from the Quran itself. And we're linking it to what Allah tells us about Himself in the Quran. And we see that there's a beautiful match. It's almost a perfect match. And this will allow you to bring someone closer from going from the idea of there's a cause, an eternal cause of the universe, to it being Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So it's a beautiful way of doing this, inshallah. That being said, brothers and sisters, as we always do, we should always conclude on a spiritual point and linking all of our arguments back to the fundamental purpose of our existence, which is to know Allah and to worship Him, right? And how do we do this from the perspective of this argument? Well, the uncreated Creator gives something priceless that we do not earn, own, or deserve. He creates us. He makes us conscious. He created us. We've concluded this. If He created the universe, He created everything within the universe, which is us as well. And He gave us a conscious mind. He gave us consciousness. He made us aware of reality. He allowed us to, He gave us all the faculties and the tools that we need to find Him, to discover Him, to connect with Him. Even these arguments that we're covering today, we can process these arguments, we can reflect upon them, we can understand them. You know, they allow us to discover Him in one way. They allow, you know, the fitrah to be triggered and that truth within to emerge from the covers and remove the veils of the fitrah that are covering the fitrah. This is all by His leave. This is all what He has created. So if He has given us all of these faculties and allowed us and blessed us with faculties that lead us to Him, made us conscious so we can be aware of this, shouldn't we thank Him? Shouldn't we worship Him alone? You know, which is essentially the purpose of our existence, as Allah tells us in the Quran, that He did not create us for any other reason except to know Him and to worship Him. So, not only this, the things that we have in our life, Allah created these things, our families, the ones that we love, the fact that we can love, He created this within us. The fact that we can enjoy time with our loved ones, we can express these emotions, we can enjoy life and be fulfilled through life. All of this is from Him. He created all of these things. And all we expect, all that's expected from us is to recognize Him and to thank Him for the blessings that He has given us, because we don't own these things. We haven't created these things. You know, these are blessings. These are gifts from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And all that's required from us is just to give thanks, be grateful to Allah, to single Him out for worship. Worship Him alone. Don't end up worshipping other created things. Because when we end up worshipping other created things, we are doing a huge injustice and undermining the faculties that Allah has given us. We are lowering ourselves as a being from utilizing those faculties as they should be utilized to come to the true realization that Allah exists and He is the only one worthy of worship, and then engaging in that worship to ending up worshipping other things. We're not using ourselves in the right way. You know, what would you make of someone that buys a laptop and instead of using it for what a laptop is intended to be used for, but instead uses it as a pillow or a mat for a coffee cup, you know, for their coffee? You would think of that person as being frankly stupid, right? And doing something ridiculous. So then why should we undermine ourselves by using these faculties and attaining what we should attain via these faculties? That ultimate realization that Allah exists and He's worthy of worship, and end up worshipping other things. You know, what would that mean? What position does that leave us in? So we should direct our ultimate gratitude to God alone. Gratitude is the key to worship. All perfect praise and gratitude, as Allah says in Surah Fatiha, all perfect praise and gratitude belongs to the Lord of everything that exists. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The Quran begins with this proclamation, that all perfect thanks and praise belongs to Allah alone. And this, if we can attain this realization, this is the greatest realization and conclusion any human could come to. This is the peak, you know. And if we don't attain this, and even if we understand this but turn away from this and don't worship Allah, well then no one else is to blame except ourselves. So on this point, brothers and sisters, we have concluded the argument, the Quranic argument for God's existence, which, like I've said, is a very powerful argument. Now, one thing I really encourage you to do as well is when you go through this content, you know, I don't want you to try and engage with this content in a way where you try to remember every single point and articulate it the way I've tried to articulate it, but instead take the concepts, you know, and put it in your own words. And in your mind, formulate different versions of this argument. In a way, have a very simple version of this argument, have a more intermediate, you know, middle ground argument, if you like, which is somewhat deep and goes through some of these points, and have that sort of high-level academic argument. And if you want to go through this in more detail again, definitely pick up the Divine Reality that's written by Hamza Zortes and read the chapter on the Quranic argument for God's existence, which will give you far more specific points, references, etc., which you guys can fall back on when making this particular argument. So when you're ready, brothers and sisters, and you've gone through this, and you've, you know, maybe evaluated it again, made your notes, etc., when you're ready, move on to the next section.